What up, guys? I'm Rob with Useless Hobby Limited, and welcome to Political Theater. Political Theater is a show that takes the general spin, partisanship, and preaching out of politics. Today, I must confess I might be doing a little bit of preaching, but I'm not telling you what to do. I am just heavily suggesting something. Let's back up and let me kind of just tell you, please don't panic. I know COVID-19 has been putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people, but just rest assured, we will get through this. Having a pandemic may be unprecedented in modern times, but Spanish influenza was really freaking crazy in 1918, and people managed to get through it. It's kind of funny, there is a big pandemic every 100 years, so the pandemic in the 1800s was a lot worse than what we're dealing with right now because we have modern medicine. We have people who wash their hands. They didn't wash their hands back even in 1920 nearly as much because not everyone had running water. Now everyone has running water. We have modern necessities that take care of a lot of the small things that help. And it stinks that hand sanitizer and stuff has been hoarded in a lot of ways, but practicing safe social distancing, making sure that you stay inside and self-quarantine, that goes a long, long way. I know it's hard. Some people still have to work. Not everywhere is shut down, but just try to keep the faith and know that help is on the way. But first off, let me explain. So right now we're kind of where things are starting to shut down. We need a national lockdown, and all non-essential businesses like haberdashery store, you get the idea, something of that nature they just need to shut their doors for a little bit and go home, and everybody just needs to sit inside, watch TV, play video games, get those 3 weeks of sleep that every adult has been wishing for since they turned 18. I know that I have. And it's kind of hard to sleep when you're super stressed out, but just know that. So the Trump administration has announced that they are possibly going to be giving an economic stimulus to the American people. They are going to give every American $1,000. Now, this isn't 100% confirmed, but this is something they've been talking about pretty heavily. It started with Mitt Romney suggesting $1,000 per person. Kamala Harris now is getting into the race with something admittedly not, I wouldn't say it's not as good. She's saying $500 per household, whereas it would be $1,000 per person. And so if you have a household of like 3 adults and 1 kid, like you have an 18-year-old kid, 2 parents, and then maybe a 13-year-old or like even 16-year-old, they get $3,000, where that same household will only get $500. There would be a lot of months before that would add up to the same amount. They're also talking about potentially making it monthly, which would be a lot better. $1,000 is great, but it might still be a little low. I don't know. But injecting $1,000 in every American, while a lot of Americans are out of work, will definitely help stimulate the economy because it'll go right back into toilet paper, it'll go back into essentials, and those businesses will stay open and be able to keep producing because they will have money. I mean, unfortunately, there's literally no alternative though, because, people are largely not able to work because if they get sick, they get really sick, and then they're out of work. So, there's not really a bootstraps argument here. This isn't a conventional, even just like talk about like a hurricane or something like that. So what the Trump administration is looking for is something called universal basic income. And if they did do universal basic income, this would actually be setting a precedent for a potential welfare state down the road with a lot of Americans out of work or feeling like they're struggling. This actually might end up being more of a left-wing position than the Democrats have been suggesting, which would be really just, I don't... 2020 has been wild so far, folks. But if people want this $1,000, if people want more than this $1,000, so this is where I get to the little bit of a preachy part. Y'all need to call your local, state, and national reps. Because if you don't, then they're not going to hear your voices, and they're just going to make a decision without you. So you guys need to just, especially if you're quarantined, write a really well-written email. Write several poorly written emails. Just write emails that say, you guys are my representatives. I want you to represent me this way. And if you do that, then you'll be able to have your voice heard. And people like to say that we don't live in a democracy, we don't live in a republic. We do. Your state and local reps will listen to you. Because when something happens that people don't like and it receives enough backlash, oftentimes it doesn't get passed. At the end of the day, these people represent you, and even if you feel that they're corrupt and that their donors are the ones that are controlling them, they still have to look the voter in the eye and be like, this is why you have to vote for me. And if they're only doing bad stuff, I mean, yeah, that's why you can vote people out. That's why even people who've been in for a really long time, like Joseph Crowley, for example, in New York, eventually people were just fed up with him and they voted AOC in. Whether you agree with AOC or not, whether you agree with Joseph Crowley or not, enough people were fed up with him enough to vote him out. And it's the same thing happening with Nancy Pelosi in San Francisco. There's a big enough pushback against her that people are creating a candidate that they feel can actually win. And he has a lot of momentum. Whether he wins or not, I'm not sure. But it just really goes to show that these people are elected officials and they need to serve their constituents, and they will, as long as your voice is heard. So please, if you have time, and I know a lot of us do, a lot of us are just sitting at home, just make sure you give a phone call to, I would suggest, at least your state rep. But if you could get a call into the White House during their time that they're open, if you can get a call into Congress, the Senate, maybe a couple different ones, just show, look, I am a concerned citizen. I believe that this $1,000 a month, Bernie Sanders suggested $2,000. I don't know. Is that too little? Is that not enough? Is that too much? How are your bills looking? Tell them about your bills. Tell them, like, look, this is what I have, and I am out of work because you work at a fast food restaurant or you work at a fine dining establishment. Most restaurants are shut down. So you explain, like, look, I normally make $1,000 in tips a week. I clean up. But right now, I'm out of work. And although I have a law degree, a lot of the law firms are shut down or not nearly the same hours they used to be. So I can't find another job. I really need some help, Uncle Sam. Please help me. And if there's enough people saying this, it will get passed. And whether it's a Republican or Democratic administration, that's not relevant. What's relevant is people made enough noise and they got it through. It's like that scene in JFK where Kevin Costner's done with the speech. He looks at the camera and says, it's up to you. That's what you have to remember. It is up to you. America's still a republic. It's still a democracy, even if there might be a little bit more tomfoolery. But there's never been a government without tomfoolery. So we're just going to have to circumvent that if we want it to serve us. I've got my fancy kombucha. I hope everybody had a lovely St. Patrick's Day. I was not able to get to the store yesterday because I was dealing with some other crap, and I did not get to drink Guinness. So I'm probably going to have some Guinness today. I did blast Irish music all day, but that's a normal... If you know anything about me, that's kind of normal, though. So I'm actually not the biggest Guinness fan. I know I'm wearing the shirt and everything. I kind of wore it because... I'm in my pajamas right now, to be frank, so I wore the shirt a decent chunk of yesterday, and I'm probably going to shower after this. But, yeah, just, I don't know. I like Murphy's Stout a lot better, and then, just take your pick of, like, Imperial Stouts. Iron Hill, back in PA, they have a really great Imperial Stout. It's actually a Russian Imperial Stout, I believe, and... It's it hits super hard too. It's like 11% or something. So I've never quite had more than two, but like you definitely feel it, and it is chocolatey enough to where especially during the winter when they're serving it, like you can have some like donuts and treats with it. I'm sure you eventually lose track, and then yeah, hopefully you don't get lost in the snow. But everyone needs to stay brave. The reason why those post-apocalyptic movies aren't realistic, it doesn't take into consideration, like, human beings are social creatures. They like working together. Even though they like to argue, it's fun. It's fun to get caught up in the drama. Ultimately, when there is a crisis, everyone does come together and they're like, all right, let's get this done. So this is a really good testament to how things are already coming together. We're already talking about a completely very conservative Republican presidency potentially putting money in the hands of everyday Americans. And $1,000 is a lot of money when people couldn't even get Andrew Yang's UBI passed in a normal election cycle. The minute a pandemic hits, suddenly, hey, $1,000 is actually, I don't know, maybe that's not enough. Anyway, guys, hope you have a lovely day. May the wind be at your back. Keep your chin up.